Hey guys, Gary Mitchell here. Sorry it's taken me so long to get this review up. I've been traveling and out of town for Mother's Day. I'm back now and I'm here to talk about this guy. Let's talk about this guy. Captain America Civil War is an absolutely outstanding movie. This is Marvel Studios at the top of its game. They are absolutely rocking out with their films. It's just a fantastic film overall. Whether you're into comic books or not, this is an absolutely phenomenal movie. Go see it right now. There's a ton of stuff in this movie I'd love to talk about, but to keep it spoiler-free and short, I'm just gonna break it down into a couple of categories. And the first one is the story and pacing. This movie is long. It's like 2.5 hours long, but it doesn't really feel like that because they do such a great job of breaking things up. There's action, there's drama, there are funny moments, there are sad moments. The flow of the movie is just done so beautifully that, yeah, you're gonna be sitting for a while, but you don't really mind. The conflicts in this movie come from Tony Stark, Iron Man, and Steve Rogers, Captain America, who have a very serious disagreement about this thing that the government is trying to sort of force them to do. So you've gotten to know these characters. You like these characters. And so when you see them fighting each other, you really feel it. And that's exactly why you're invested in the story, which brings me to category number 2. You care because of the characters. Captain America has become the heart and the soul of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There are so many characters in this movie, but they do such a great job of making sure that the story is focused on Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. This movie is really about the relationship between those two characters. The issue that is putting these two characters at odds is a really complicated and legitimate issue. And you watch this movie and they do such a good job of showing you both sides and both perspectives that you're like, I agree with him. No, I kind of agree with him. No, he's right. But with so many characters in this movie, it would have been easy for there to just be too many characters. But the Russo brothers that directed this film have done such an expert job of making sure the story is centered on the main characters. There's all these other people here as well, and everybody gets their little moments. Every character in this movie gets a little bit of time to shine without taking away from the focus of the movie. In particular, I was really excited to see the interaction between some of these characters who have never met before. All that stuff is so much fun to watch. Speaking of the characters, there are 2 new characters that are introduced for the first time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in this movie. Number 1, Black Panther. If you've never heard of the superhero, the Black Panther, get ready because you're about to hear a lot about him because he kind of steals the show in this movie. Comic book nerds like me have been very excited about Black Panther because he's pretty much the premier African-American superhero in Marvel Comics. The Black Panther is actually the king of an African nation called Wakanda that they've sort of alluded to in some other Marvel films, and you even got to see for a brief period of time in Age of Ultron. In this movie, Black Panther is played by a fantastic actor named Chadwick Boseman, and he just crushes it. I absolutely love the way they've introduced this character into the movie, and he's getting his own solo movie in a couple of years, and I absolutely can't wait. The other new character that's not new at all because we've been watching him for years is Spider-Man. Spider-Man is in this movie, and it's so cool, and it's a huge, huge deal. Why is it such a huge deal? I'm glad you asked. You wouldn't know this from looking at their box office numbers, but there was a time when Marvel Comics was actually in bankruptcy. Back in the 90s, Marvel was in serious financial trouble, and so in order to stay afloat, they actually sold the movie and media rights to several of their major characters. 20th Century Fox got the film rights for the X-Men characters and the Fantastic Four. And then Sony Pictures got the rights to Spider-Man. Now eventually Marvel got back on its feet and created their own movie studio, Marvel Studios, which is responsible for all of these amazing Avengers movies we have. But the movie rights to several of Marvel's most popular characters are still owned by rival movie studios. So what that means is that for the last decade or so, Marvel Studios has actually been competing against characters that they created. So even though comic book nerds like me have waited our entire lives to see Spider-Man and Captain America and Wolverine and all of these characters in in one movie, for legal reasons, that's probably never gonna happen. Or so we thought. And then Marvel Studios did the impossible. So in the last couple of years, Marvel Studios cut a deal with Sony Pictures to get Spider-Man back into their cinematic universe. And because of that, Spider-Man is in Civil War, and it's so cool. Now, is this a perfect movie? No. And I do have a couple of really minor gripes about this movie. And the first one is that there's a lot of history involved with this movie. This movie is very closely tied to several of the Marvel movies that have come before it. So if you haven't seen those movies, you can still enjoy it for what it is, but you're not gonna get as much out of it. I've seen all of the Marvel movies several times, and even for me, there were a couple of times when I was like, oh, right. So the casual film goer is still going to enjoy the movie, but there's a little bit of a learning curve. I would definitely recommend seeing the first Captain America movie, the first Avenger, and Winter Soldier before coming to see this movie. Also, if you've got time to check out the first Avengers movie and Avengers 2 Age of Ultron, both play heavily into what happens in this film. The other thing in this movie that I wasn't crazy about is there actually is a villain in this movie. The main conflict definitely comes from the disagreement that Tony Stark and Steve Rogers are having, but it turns out that there really is a sort of classic Captain America villain that's kind of behind the scenes orchestrating this whole thing. And when you finally see who this person is and kind of what they're trying to do and their motivation, you get it, but it's still kind of like, I didn't really feel like the guy needed to be there. Or they could have done more with him. They could have made him more of this iconic villain that he is in the comic books. I personally would really have liked it if they had found a way to work in his sort of costume and uniform that he wears from the comic books. So I feel like if they had just taken that villain out completely, or if they had done more to establish him as this iconic villain, then it would have had more impact. But honestly, those are the only two complaints I've got. These Captain America movies are the only Marvel franchise so far that keep getting better with each one. So I'm starting a new thing where I'm going to score these movies. It's 1 out of 10, 10 being the best, 1 being absolute garbage. And I've got to give Captain America Civil War a 9 out of 10. It is an absolutely phenomenal movie. Go see it right now. You can come see it with me if you want to. I've already seen it twice. I'll probably see it a third time. Thanks as always for watching. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Send it to a few friends that you know will appreciate it. And once again, I've got a fantastic new YouTube series getting ready to start up soon. I'm sorry it's taking so long. It's just a ton of work, but I really want to make sure that it is the absolute best work that I can do. So stay tuned for that. You'll be hearing about it soon. Thanks again for watching. I'm Gary Mitchell, and we'll see you next time. Stay cool, stay blessed, stay in touch.